This Saturday is UFC Vegas 90, Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis 2, and this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction. Starting off with the very first fight of the night, Tonya Mullins versus Nora Cornolle. What a barn burner this is. Two of the elite. I'm kidding. It's kind of a low-level women's MMA fight. Nora Cornolle made her UFC debut against Jocelyn Edwards, arguably lost, got the win. She got out-grappled, but basically Jocelyn Edwards wasn't doing any damage on top. And honestly, just watching that performance, this is an easy pick. I'm going Tonya Mullins to get it done. She made her UFC debut against Irina Alekseeva, gets a win there. And then even outside the UFC, her last fight outside the UFC was against Daria Zelezniakova, who just made her UFC debut and got a win 2 weeks ago. And she faced some adversity there, got hurt early, was losing the fight, then ended up using her grappling and found a finish against Zelezniakova, who's a decent striker. And then obviously against Irina Alekseeva, in that, I think it was first round, she got dropped or hurt badly in the first round, came back and won that fight. I think Tonya Mullins is better everywhere. Nora Cornolle, maybe an advantage in the clinch. She has good knees in the clinch, good elbows in the clinch. But 2 fights ago, she's fighting someone who's 0-0, who's never had a pro MMA fight. So I'm not picking her. She's 34 years old, 7-1. I think Tonya Mullins has better striking, better grappling, and I think she'll get it done probably via a fairly dominant decision. I'm going to say Tonya Mullins gets it done 30-27 decision. If Cornolle wins a round, she'll win it with her clinch work. And that's the only really avenue to victory I see her winning this fight, is pushing her against the fence and winning rounds that way. But I think Tonya Mullins is good enough in the clinch where she'll be able to disengage and get back to striking. And I think she's the better striker. And I think she can take Nora Cornolle down like Jocelyn Edwards did. And I think she'll actually do damage on the ground. So I'm going Tonya Mullins via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Dylan Budka versus Cesar Almeida. Dylan Budka's from Baltimore, Maryland, so I'm rooting for him heavily. And honestly, I always kind of trap myself sometimes when I'm rooting for a certain fighter. I'm like, am I only picking him because I'm rooting for him? Like, I start playing mind games a bit, even though I don't actively ever, pick a fight based on who I want to win or who I like. I want to be right, even though that's not always the case. But I'm watching this, tape on Cesar Almeida. Cesar Almeida literally is 4-0. Very limited MMA experience, kickboxer, fought Alex Pereira 3 times in kickboxing, has a win over Alex Pereira, but we're talking like 2013 and 2015, and he also has 2 losses to Alex Pereira, and he has no grappling at all. Absolutely no grappling. Against Lucas Fernando on Dana White's Contender Series, got taken down, but Lucas Fernando kind of gassed out and didn't have the best grappling himself. Dylan Budka, fought on Chad. I forgot how to pronounce his last name. He fought Chad on Dana White's Contender Series. Didn't look that good, to be honest. I didn't think Budka looked that good. I didn't think he'd get a contract. But you have to take into account he came in on 2 weeks' notice. He had just fought 2 weeks prior at heavyweight, then cut down to middleweight, which is his natural weight class. And, I think his performance kind of suffered. But I think he has good enough grappling, good enough striking where he's not going to be completely outmatched on the feet. Cesar Almeida is big and long. He doesn't even have a reach advantage, which is crazy. I thought he would have a reach advantage, but he doesn't have a reach advantage. He's 36 years old, Cesar Almeida is. I think Dylan Budka will go out there and easily out-grapple him. I don't think Cesar Almeida has any wrestling at all. And I think someone with some decent top control can go out there, out-grapple him, and literally just dominate him on the ground. Honestly, I'm going to go Dylan Budka to submit him. I'm going to say Dylan Budka gets it done first round rear naked choke. I'm going to say he shoots a takedown in the first minute, gets him down, starts beating him up, controlling him. I think he's going to have a much better performance now they had a full camp. And he's been 5 rounds before, so I think Budka's not going to gas out. He went a hard 3 rounds on Dana White's Contender Series, even on short notice. I say he gets it done. I'm going to say first round rear naked choke for Dylan Budka. Moving up on the card, we have Jean Matsumoto versus Dan Argueta. This is a tough fight to pick, honestly. This is a tough fight to pick. Jean Matsumoto is very young, coming off Dana White's Contender Series against Casey Tanner. 14-0, undefeated. Dan Argueta coming off 2-0 contest. I think he lost to Miles John, and then Miles John's tested positive for something. Before that, he had a sub over Ronnie Lawrence, but the referee stopped it before he tapped, so he didn't get credit for that. So his last win was against Nick Aguirre. Honestly, Jean Matsumoto, which I don't know why I'm having trouble saying his last name, is decently well-rounded, has a background in Muay Thai, has some good leg kicks. He can be taken down, but even on Dana White's Contender Series, he's scrambling back up against Casey Tanner and lighting him up on the feet. I could see Argueta winning this, but his striking's so bad. And I think Matsumoto, even though he's not great on the ground, I think he has decent jiu-jitsu, decent get-ups, and I don't see Argueta finding a submission. So I'm going to go Jean Matsumoto via decision. I'm going to say he gets it done via decision. I think he's way better on the feet. So as long as he can get comfortable either stuffing the takedowns or scrambling back to his feet, I think he'll be winning on the feet unless he's so terrified of the takedown. Let's say he gets taken down and controlled for a whole round, then he's going to be terrified. Okay, maybe then he gets outstruck. But Dan Argueta doesn't have great striking. So I just, he has submission skills. He has good grappling, but even his entries to his takedowns aren't that great. He gets a little sloppy. Like after the first few minutes, if he can't get a takedown, then he starts to get really sloppy with the takedowns. He honestly looked horrible against Miles Johns and some of the sloppy takedowns he was shooting. And then even in the third round, I think Miles Johns was ending up on top because Argueta was just sloppily shooting in. And I think Matsumoto will be able to get it done. I'm going to say he wins it via decision. I'm just going to say he outstrikes him and is able to stuff the majority of the takedowns. And when Argueta does get him down, if he does get him down, I think he'll be able to scramble back up, and I think he'll be able to avoid the submission. So I'm going Matsumoto via decision. Moving up on the card, Cynthia Calvillo versus Piera Rodriguez. Ew. Cynthia Calvillo at one point main evented a Fight Night card against Jessica I. And now she's on a 5-fight losing streak. And she lost to Caitlin Sermonara. She lost to Jessica Andrade. She lost to Andrea Lee. She quit on the stool against Andrea Lee. Talk about no heart. Lost to Nina Nunes and most recently lost to Lupita Godinez. But the last 2 fights were split decision losses. You have Piera Rodriguez got submitted by Jillian Robertson in her last fight. And what's crazy is Rodriguez was actually winning on the feet and then initiated the grappling and then got subbed. Before that, a win over Sam Hughes. Before that, a win over Kay Hansen. Before that, on Dana White's Contender Series. I really think Calvillo could win this fight, but how am I going to pick her 5-fight losing streak? I mean, I don't think she's won a fight since 2020. That's insanity. That's insane. And she's 36 years old. Calvillo's okay. I mean, she has okay grappling. She took down Lupita Godinez, which is actually decent, even though she just lost to Verna Jandiroba just recently. Honestly, they're both mediocre. They're both mediocre everywhere. I think Piera Rodriguez has a striking advantage. I think Calvillo has a grappling advantage. But she doesn't have some crazy good submission game or jiu-jitsu game where she's going to find a sub. So I think it's going to be a close fight. But I'm going to go Piera Rodriguez to get it done via decision. It's going to be a close decision, maybe 29-28 decision win for Rodriguez. I'm just not picking Calvillo. Her striking is sloppy as hell. And also she's been out, almost a year now since the Godinez fight, which isn't that long. But, I mean, think about it. It's been 4 years since she's tasted victory. She's 36 years old. I think she's on the way out. The fact that she quit on the stool against Andrea Lee just says all I need to know about her skill set. At one point, people looked at her as a future potential contender at strawweight. No way I'm picking her. I'm not confident in Piera Rodriguez, but I think she gets it done. I think she boxes her up a little bit on the feet and avoids the takedowns. And even if she gets taken down, she's not going to get submitted. So I'm going to go Piera Rodriguez 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card, Alatengheili versus Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo was supposed to fight Daniel Marcos a couple weeks or months ago, I believe it was. And luckily for him, he missed weight and had to pull out of that fight because I think he would have lost to Daniel Marcos, who's super well-rounded. Alatengheili, decent striker, has some decent power, lost to Chris Gutierrez in his last fight. Before that, a win over Chad Anheliger, which isn't bad. Before that, a KO win over Kevin Kroom. He's been around for a bit. He's been in the UFC actually for quite a while, over 4 years. And he's just decently well-rounded. He's kind of like one of these mid-tier. I mean, probably not even mid-tier at bantamweight, low-tier at bantamweight, but that's how good bantamweight is. And he's got decent striking, decent grappling, decent power. And then you have Victor Hugo, who doesn't have good striking at all. He rushes in, looks to grapple. He got a knee bar on Dana White's Contender Series. This is going to be his UFC debut here. And I honestly think maybe people are just going to think Alatengheili has no grappling, which isn't true at all. He has decent grappling, was out grappling, got takedowns, I think, against Chad Anheliger, even got a couple takedowns against Chris Gutierrez, who I know Chris Gutierrez, people think of for bad grappling, but we're talking against Song Yudong, who is top of the food chain at bantamweight. So actually, I'm going to go Alatengheili to get this done. I think he's better on the feet. He's way better on the feet. Hugo has good power. He has good finishing ability, but he's so sloppy. Could he find a finish? Could he find a KO? Yes. He has a 13-fight win streak, and 17 out of 24 of his wins are via finish. So he is a finisher, but he's majority sometimes rolling for knee bars, pulling guard. That's kind of what he did on Dana White's Contender Series. And he was having a decent fight there. Has some good hard leg kicks, but his hands are just so sloppy. I think Alatengheili, more technical on the feet, and has good enough grappling to fend off the takedowns. Unless Hugo pulls some, weird stuff where he, pulls guard or rolls for a leg lock and finds it, or maybe Alatengheili slips and ends up on the ground and then Hugo jumps on top of him and then ends up in top position. I think Hugo definitely has a BJJ advantage, but I'm going to go Alatengheili to get it done. I'm going to say he wins it via decision, outstriking him, stuffing the takedowns, and just Victor Hugo's too sloppy on the feet. And I could see even Alatengheili KOing him because he has decent power. It's not crazy power, but decent power. And I could see Hugo walking into something, shooting in on a sloppy shot. But I'm going Alatengheili via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Norma Dumont versus Germaine de Randamie. This is a very, very weird fight to pick. Germaine de Randamie, former featherweight champion, who then never defended her belt, and has now been out for ages, basically. She hasn't fought in 3.5 years since she had a win over Juliana Pena, where she submitted her. It's so weird. She's coming back at 40 years old. I don't even know what's been going on with her. I don't even remember. I remember reading it at one point, but I don't remember it now. And, she's coming back 3.5 years. She's primarily a kickboxer. She submitted Juliana Pena, but that just goes to show what kind of, how shitty Juliana Pena is, at least back then. Has lost to Amanda Nunes, did okay in that fight, went over Aspen Ladd. Her resume looks like kind of crap. She beat Holly Holm 7 years ago. I believe that was for the inaugural, not the inaugural, but it was for the vacant featherweight title, I believe, at that point. Norma Dumont coming off a win over Chelsea Chandler, Carl Rosa, and Danielle Wolf, so not the greatest wins. Last loss was to Macy Chasson. I'm wondering, this is at bantamweight. Norma Dumont hasn't fought at bantamweight before. Or it's been a while since she's fought at bantamweight, at least. Because the Chelsea Chandler fight even was at featherweight, but that division's gone. So I'm wondering if she's even going to make weight. Germaine de Randamie is a big question mark because she's returning after such a long layoff. She's 40 years old. Maybe she just needs a quick paycheck and then she's going to retire again. I'm going to go Norma Dumont. I think Norma Dumont's good enough on the feet. She can mix in the grappling. Germaine de Randamie is huge, and I do worry about the weight cut for Dumont. This fight honestly may get canceled or may get ended up at a catch weight. But I just can't pick an unknown in Germaine de Randamie coming off a 4-year layoff. Her kickboxing, 4 years ago, I would have picked Germaine de Randamie. But I think Norma Dumont can mix in the takedowns, get some top control. She had Chelsea Chandler running like Forrest Griffin. And Dumont, I think, is improving fight to fight. The only thing I really worry about, I would be pretty confident in Dumont, but I wonder about this bantamweight weight cut. That's what I really wonder about, because she's a thick featherweight. And the UFC's just getting rid of that division now, and now Dumont's forced to cut down the bantamweight. But I'm going to go Dumont via decision. I'm going to say she gets her down, beats her up. I think she's going to be decent enough on the feet. I think Germaine de Randamie's coming in with a lot of ring rust. So I'm going to go Dumont via decision. I don't know, maybe a 29-28 decision, maybe a 30-27 decision. We'll see how it goes, but I'm definitely going Dumont decision. I can't pick someone on a 4-year layoff, basically, at 40 years old. Moving up on the card to the featured prelim, we have Court McGee versus Alex Morono. Court McGee literally played dead against Matt Brown. He got hit with a big shot. Wasn't actually KO'd, but then pretended he was KO'd. Very bizarre. Before that, got brutally slapped by Jeremiah Wells. He's 39 years old. His last win was against a guy whose name I can't even pronounce, who I barely remember. The win before that, another guy who I barely remember. And then lost to Carlos Condit 3.5 years ago. You have Morono, who's fighting decent competition. Lost to Joaquin Buckley. Hasn't aged bad. And went to decision in that fight. Just got out-grappled in that fight. And also, Buckley was throwing a lot of big power shots on the feet. Before that, submitted Tim Means. Before that, lost to Santiago Ponzinibbio. Took that fight on short notice and honestly was winning that fight up until he got finished. Before that, a win over Matthew Semmelsberger, a win over Mickey Gall. I think this is an easy pick. I'm going Alex Morono. And I'm going Alex Morono first round KO. Morono's not known for crazy power by any means, but he has 5 first round KOs. McGee's been KO'd, I believe, 3 times in his career in the first round. And he's old as hell, 40 years old, coming off 2 straight KO losses. He's playing dead mid-fight against Matt Brown, who's at the end of his career. How could I possibly pick Court McGee? How could anyone pick Court McGee? Court McGee's definitely going to try to grapple in this fight. He's going to try to take Alex Morono down, control him, but Alex Morono is going to be better on the feet. I think Morono is going to come out there, use his boxing, light up Court McGee in the first round, and sleep him out. He may just drop him with a big shot, and then Court McGee may play dead, just like he did against Matt Brown. So I'm going Alex Morono first round KO. Moving up on the card to the first fight on the main card, we have Trevor Peek versus Charlie Campbell. Man, I love Trevor Peek, but I think he belongs fighting at the Kentucky State Fair or a trailer park or something. Trevor Peek is a gritty, crazy, wild striker. He's coming off a win over Muhammad Yahya, who, honestly, after watching his fight, he doesn't belong in the UFC. His fight before that lost to Chepe Mariscal, which Tepe Merscrawl is also fighting on this card, who's pretty good. And before that, KO'd Eric Gonzalez. Before that, Dana White's Contender Series. Trevor Peek is he's just a brawler. He's just a brawler throwing crazy hammer fists, where you have Charlie Campbell coming off a win over Alex Reyes, who was inactive up until that point, but was measured, hurt him a couple times, tracked him down, and finished him. Before that, a win at CFFC against Josh Strecker. And then before that, loss against Chris Duncan on Dana White's Contender Series, but he was winning that fight, got overzealous, and got clipped and finished. Chris Duncan's a decent fighter. I think what this comes down to is the straight shots of Charlie Campbell versus the wild craziness of Trevor Peek. I just think I can't pick Trevor Peek. I can't pick him. I want to pick him. I don't know, if Trevor Peek just starts marching forward, throwing wild wing shots, can Campbell's chin hold up? He's been KO'd before. But I think the straight shots, I think he'll be moving well. I do think the small cage at the Apex favors Trevor Peek, but I think Campbell will be able to get it done. I think he can even mix in the grappling as well. Peek isn't easy to hold down, but he is able. He doesn't have the best takedown defense, and he's just so wild and crazy. He leaves himself open to takedown attempts, and I just think Campbell is decently well-rounded, has good straight punches, coming off a KO win over Alex Reyes, didn't get over-aggressive. I think he's learned from that Chris Duncan loss to not end up in a brawl. And he probably knows going into this fight, the last guy I want to brawl with is Trevor Peek. That's the last guy I want to brawl with. So I think he's going to come in and fight smart. I think he's going to hurt Trevor Peek a couple times on the feet, but maybe not go crazy for the finish, because he's going to worry about getting clipped by the power coming back from Trevor Peek. I'm going to go Charlie Campbell to win via decision. I think he gets it done via decision. I could see it being a close fight. Maybe one round. Campbell does get hurt by Peek when he's rushing in. But I think Campbell's technical striking is just going to be better than Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek, you can only go so far fighting for funnel cakes and $250 at the Kentucky State Fair. You can only go so far, and I think he's got about as far as he's going to get unless he starts shoring up his game a little bit. I think he loses to Charlie Campbell, and I think Campbell can mix in a little bit of grappling as well and control Trevor Peek a little bit on the ground as well. So I'm going Campbell via decision. I think he gets it done. Moving up on the card, we have Lukasz Brzeski versus Valter Walker. I think this is Johnny Walker's brother. Lukasz Brzeski's coming off a KO loss against Waldo Cortez Acosta, who has no power. Before that, a loss to Carl Williams. Before that, a split decision loss against Martin Budai. Valter Walker coming off a fight where he went 4 rounds against Alex Nicholson for Titan FC Heavyweight Championship. So he has decent cardio. Is just a monster. Is humongous. He's a massive heavyweight. I wouldn't shock me he has to cut weight to get down to heavyweight. Then you have Lukasz Brzeski, who's the definition of skinny fat guy, to quote Nate Diaz. And Lukasz Brzeski has okay, boxing straight punches, not known for his power, not known for his grappling. Really not known for anything other than being an incredibly low-level heavyweight, which is already a low bar. I think Valter Walker comes in here, just out-grapples him and beats him up on the ground. I don't see Brzeski stuffing the takedowns of Valter Walker. Valter Walker, 11-0, massive heavyweight, Titan FC champ, beating guys up, KOing basically everyone. I think he gets it done via KO. I'm going to say Valter Walker takes him down, beats him up in the first round. But Brzeski survives. Second round, the writing's on the wall. I think Valter Walker gets him down the second round. I'm going to say Valter Walker, second round, ground and pound, TKO win. I just can't see Brzeski getting it done here. And also, Valter Walker, he's only 26 years old. 26 years old, has a reach advantage, has a height advantage, has a grappling advantage, and Brzeski's just not good anywhere. And doesn't have that heavyweight KO power. And honestly, I would love to know what showing on Tapology, I guess this is his last weigh-in, 235. So, he's going to be small. He's going to be undersized. Valter Walker's going to get him down and just mercilessly beat him with ground and pound and get a second round TKO. Moving up on the card, we have Ignacio Bahamondes versus Christos Giagos. Honestly, I could see myself going either way with this fight. Because Christos Giagos, he lost his last fight against Daniel Zellhuber. Actually rocked Zellhuber early, but then eventually gets submitted in the second round. Before that, the win over Ricky Glenn, bottom of the barrel. But before that, the competition he was facing, Thiago Moises got submitted there. Before that, Arman Saryukian got finished there. So he's fought decent competition, even though he's lost 3 out of his last 4. 2 of those opponents are really good. And then you have Bahamondes coming off a loss against Ludovic Klein, which I don't think is a horrible loss to have. He kind of looks slow in that fight. And then before that, win over Trey Ogden, which has aged quite well. Before that, a win over Rong Zhu, where he submitted him. And then a win over Roosevelt Roberts. We've all seen the spinning back wheel kick KO. And his most recent loss before that was against John McDessie, which isn't horrible. And Bahamondes is still young, 26 years old, has good striking. Giagos has decent power, but his striking isn't that good. Probably going to try to mix in the grappling here. I have to go Ignacio Bahamondes to get it done. Bahamondes can be taken down and controlled, so I think Giagos is definitely going to be trying to use his offensive grappling in this fight, but I have to go Bahamondes. I think he's way better on the feet. I think Giagos has some power, but I don't think he's going to find the range. I mean, you look at the reach disadvantage, you have a 4-inch reach advantage for Bahamondes, and also a 5-inch height advantage for Bahamondes. Mixes in a lot of kicks. It has some powerful kicks as well, and I just think he's going to butcher Giagos on the feet. I think Giagos, squares up his stance and kind of throws these big, heavy power shots. And sometimes he finds them. But, look, he's 20-11 overall. And I think this is one of those fights at 34 years old where you're just being fed to the young, up-and-coming prospect. In this sport, if you watch it long enough, you realize the young perpetually eat the old. Does the old occasionally get a win here or there? Yes. But I think Bahamondes in this case is the young, up-and-coming prospect who's going to finish Christos Giagos. I'm going to go Ignacio Bahamondes. I'm going to say second round KO or second round TKO, one or the other. I think he's going to clip him on the feet and finish him with ground and pound probably, maybe catch him with a head kick. But I see Bahamondes getting it done on the feet unless he just gets completely out-grappled the entire fight, which he did get taken down a little bit by Ludovic Klein and was getting pieced up on the feet by Ludovic Klein. But I think Ludovic Klein's a bit underrated overall and very gritty and has really good striking as well. I don't think Giagos is even close to Ludovic Klein's skill level, so I have to go Ignacio Bahamondes to get it done. I'm going to pick him second round TKO. Moving up on the card, the featured fight on the main card, we have Morgan Charriere versus Chepe Mariscal. This was my toughest pick on the card, honestly. My toughest pick. I've picked Chepe Mariscal in both of his UFC fights. I picked him against Trevor Peek. I believe that was on short notice. And I picked him against Jack Jenkins, which I don't feel like anyone was picking him against Jack Jenkins. He lost the first round and then was kind of having some moments in the second round and looked for a takedown, and Jack Jenkins snapped his arm, basically. Morgan Charriere coming in off that win, his UFC debut against Manolo Zucchini, where Manolo Zucchini isn't that good, but he got destroyed on the feet with body kicks from Morgan Charriere. And then before that, he's fighting okay competition in Cage Warriors, but Cage Warriors champions always come into the UFC and get overhyped every single time they get overhyped. And that makes me question this. That makes me question Morgan Charriere. I feel like, how many times do I get duped by Cage Warriors? Oh, they were good in Cage Warriors. And they come to the UFC and they look like shit. Look at Reese McKee. Twice now. He's a prospect from Cage Warriors. And he comes in the UFC, shits the bed. Chepe Mariscal is an absolute dog. Great striking, good grappling, super durable, has power, excellent leg kicks. Impossible to finish. But I think Morgan Charriere has good enough grappling to stuff some of the takedowns. I think Morgan Charriere's striking is getting better. He has excellent kicks. He showed his body kicks in his last fight. I do worry about the level of competition. I mean, Chepe Mariscal has fought some decent competition throughout his career, and he's so tough and durable. I want to pick Chepe Mariscal. I want to be 3-0 with Chepe Mariscal, but I actually think Morgan Charriere is going to get it done. I think Chepe, was losing on the feet against Jack Jenkins, mixed in the grappling, got the win. I think if he tries to mix in the grappling against Charriere, I think Charriere will be able to stuff the takedowns. And I think Charriere is good enough on the feet where he's going to outstrike Chepe Mariscal. Nasty body kicks, nasty leg kicks, has decent hands, has good power. So I'm going to go Morgan Charriere via decision. I'm going to say it's going to be a close fight, but I think Morgan Charriere gets it done. I'm going to say 29-28 decision win for Morgan Charriere over Chepe Mariscal. Moving up on the card to the co-main event, Alexander Hernandez versus Damon Jackson. Damon Jackson coming off the loss against Billy Q, coming off a KO loss against Danny Gay the fight before. That last win was against Pat Sabatini. Not bad win there. And then you have Alexander Hernandez coming off a loss against Bill Algeo via decision. Win over Jim Miller, a loss against Billy Q where he got finished against Billy Q, and a loss against Renato Moicano. Alexander Hernandez at one point was considered a really good prospect. But the thing that's always been his problem is his stamina. And I wonder how his stamina is going to hold up in this fight. But he's 31 and Damon Jackson's 35, going on 36, coming off 2 losses. I think Hernandez is really good early. If he can work on his stamina, I actually think he can be good at featherweight. So I'm going to go Alex Hernandez to get this done. I think Alexander Hernandez gets it done. I'm going to say first round KO. I think Damon Jackson's getting slow with every fight. We've seen him getting lit up against Billy Q. we've seen, and Billy Q has horrible striking. Honestly, I know people kind of, Billy Q this, Billy Q that. He's got horrible striking. And Dan Ige has nasty power. I think Alexander Hernandez has decent enough power as well to get it done. So I think as long as Hernandez doesn't gas himself out looking for a finish early and then lose the second and third round, I think he'll be able to fend off the takedown attempts from Damon Jackson, which we know Damon Jackson's going to try to grapple. And I think Hernandez beats him up on the feet and finds a KO. I'm going to go Alexander Hernandez late first round KO with his hands. I just think Damon Jackson is going to be spamming the takedown, and he's just going to get, Alexander Hernandez is going to get his timing, and I think he's going to find a KO in the late first round. I just don't trust Damon Jackson at 35 years old to get it done. Does have a slight height advantage. Basically, their reach is the same, a little bit of a reach advantage for Hernandez, and Hernandez is much younger at 31 years old. Hernandez is arguably entering his prime right now. How good is that? I don't know. But Damon Jackson likes to take you down and beat you up. He's not taking Alexander Hernandez down early and beating him up early. It'll have to be late after Hernandez gets tired, but I don't think Hernandez is going to get tired. I think he's the superior striker, and I think he finds a KO in the first round. Moving up on the card to the main event, we have Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis 2. This is an interesting rematch because this is short notice again. Chris Curtis has now taken this fight twice on short notice. And Chris Curtis is so much better in 5-round fights, and he's been, screaming from the rooftops, I want a 5-round fight, I want a 5-round fight, I want a 5-round fight. And if you look at all his fights, he always gets better as the fight goes on. And you look at his last fight against Marc-Andre Barriault, wasn't the best performance, but, got it done against Marc-Andre Barriault. And that's a kind of a tough style matchup. Barriault has really good stamina and is really gritty and takes good shots. Before that, no contest against Nassourdine Imavov. He was losing the fight. Then there was the head clash. Before that, I lost to Kelvin Gastelum, but it was razor close, and he suffered a massive headbutt that arguably won the fight for Kelvin Gastelum. And then before that, KO'd Joaquin Buckley. Before that, lost to Jack Hermanson, took that on short notice, and won the third round. I think 5 rounds favors Chris Curtis massively. It seems like he always gives away the first and second round and then starts to come on strong, so I think this benefits him massively. You have Brendan Allen, who's getting a lot of hype, but he beat the dead corpse of Paul Craig. He beat Bruno Silva, who just lost to the dead corpse of Chris Weidman, even though Chris Weidman jabbed his eyes out left and right with his fingers. He was like, how dare Bruno Silva have his eyes open during the fight, and just poked him in the eyes repeatedly. Andre Muniz, another scrub. Brendan Allen's resume is the most fraudulent resume. I can't believe he's ranked in the top 10. And they fought in 2021, late 2021, and Chris Curtis stepped in on short notice and KO'd Brendan Allen. I picked Chris Curtis then as well. I think, honestly, I have a hard time seeing Brendan Allen win this fight unless Curtis took this fight and was completely out of shape and doesn't have stamina, which stamina has never been an issue for him throughout his entire career. Earlier in his career, it was really his grappling and his takedown defense, which was causing him problems where he was getting out-grappled. Brendan Allen doesn't have this world-class wrestling. If he gets you down, he has really good jiu-jitsu, but it's not like he has this world-class wrestling, and Chris Curtis has really good boxing and is constantly mixing it into the body, which is problematic for guys who want to look for takedowns. So I think Chris Curtis is the way better striker. I think Brendan Allen is evolving on the feet with his striking, but I still don't think it's that good. And I think Brendan Allen's way overhyped off of wins over Paul Craig, dead corpse. Win over Bruno Silva, literally just got beat by a dead corpse. Andre Muniz was never good. And I'm not playing revisionist history. This is the way I felt about a lot of these guys before he beat them. And now he's fighting Chris Curtis, who I feel like is a nightmare matchup for Brendan Allen. If Brendan Allen wants to win this fight, he's going to have to get a takedown. He's going to have to pray Chris Curtis slips up, ends up on the ground, and Brendan Allen jumps on his back and locks the hooks in as like Chris Curtis is trying too fast to scramble back to his feet and doesn't, protect his back. Sometimes like a guy will slip and then they'll like turn around and go to, pop up real quick, and then boom, a guy with really good jiu-jitsu will jump on their back and get both hooks in. I think it'll have to be something like that for Brendan Allen if he wants to get it done. Brendan Allen has to win via submission in this fight. But I think the longer the fight goes on, the more it favors Chris Curtis. And I see Chris Curtis getting it done. I think he's going to start off slow, maybe give away the first or second round like he typically does, and he's going to be worried about the takedowns. But as the fight goes on, he's going to get more confidence, and he's going to be ripping to the body, and it's going to be more problematic for Brendan Allen to shoot takedowns. And I think Curtis's superior boxing is going to win him this fight. I'm going Chris Curtis to win the rematch via third round TKO. I see him taking a little bit longer this time, but he finished him in the second round last time, and Chris Curtis does like getting TKOs in the second round. But I think this being a 5-round fight, I see Chris Curtis getting it done later in this fight. I'm going to go 3rd round TKO. He has the better boxing. Brendan Allen only has the jiu-jitsu advantage, and Chris Curtis' takedown defense has improved vastly. I mean, Rodolfo Vieira stuffed every takedown he had. And look, he just got a win over Armin Petrosian. So that has aged quite well. And I know it was still a couple years ago, but either way, Chris Curtis gets better as the fight goes on. I think he stuffs Brendan Allen's takedowns. I think he works over Brendan Allen's body. And I think as the fight goes on, Brendan Allen's going to start to get tired, and Chris Curtis is going to just build and get stronger and stronger. And I think Chris Curtis eventually finds a mid-3rd round TKO. I got Chris Curtis to get it done. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.